the market and the conditions within it. You and I are but a mere seed in this market. However, we can be good seeds, and if enough good seeds make up a market, then that would otherwise be known as a good market. On the other hand, however, you and I could also be a bad seed, and if enough bad seeds make up the market, then it would be otherwise known as a bad market. What we've got here on the desk is the GTX 1650, and it has been receiving quite the blasting from a lot of outlets on its price. It's coming in at $150 currently MSRP, and at this particular price point there is the competition from AMD with their RX 570 coming in at a lower price point and offering more performance. But make no mistake about it, this same bad market that is making this GTX 1650 look like bad value is the same market that is making the RX 570 brand new, that is, at its current price point. And this has to do all with the reverse situation from a year ago where we saw the cryptocurrency boom in effect. And all those brand new graphics cards were priced quite high. Fast forward to this year, however, and the graphics cards have done a 180. And in fact, all those cards from last year are now being dumped onto the market, especially the RX 570s and 580s, due to the fact that Ethereum mining, in particular to the RX series, is no longer in fashion. I myself have seen and got good deals on a lot of used RX 570s, and even to this date on Taobao, or Taobao if you want to give it a bit of a Chinese oomph. These sites are selling this graphics card quite cheap, under that of $100 most of the time. So at these price points, this is indeed giving the market dominator, Nvidia, a run for its money, quite literally. And that's what the beautiful thing about a free market is. When any single entity attempts to control it, they will be met with some negative sentiment. And that is what this card is receiving here. And it's mainly due simply to the market conditions. But with that aside, at $150, what traits does this card have? What are things that I'd like to see improved on it? And is it indeed worth that price tag? Well, let's run the numbers and then we'll get back to this Tech Yes desk. And also, in case you're wondering, yes, I am wearing glasses. Very light prescription, does help me see better at nighttime, especially when it's later at night and my eyes get tired. So getting back to the 1650 right here, we have the Galax edition and also the Gigabyte edition. Now this weighs in under 400 grams, you get a little bit less PCB, you get also different DisplayPort options, but honestly the Galax option is coming just under 500 grams. It's got a beefier cooler, does better on the temperatures and noise, coming in at 60 degrees at 100% fan speeds, and then moving down to 63 degrees at 80%, 67 degrees at 60%, and also the auto fan speeds made it go to 63%, and the noise levels were 1 decibel lower. So the 60% manual fan speed seems like the sweet spot for this graphics card in 26-degree ambient controlled environments. But going now through the gaming benchmark numbers, and I did get criticized for having too many Nvidia titles in the previous video, so I decided to flood this one with AMD titles. Hope that makes you happy fanboys out there. But regardless, we can see that the RX 570 is indeed a better choice if you are looking for raw price performance. Now, of course, the card does juice more power, and I have heard arguments of you can undervolt it, you can underclock it, but part of my experience, which in turn has affected my outlook from 2018 coming into 2019, is that I like to give the average person buying advice in the form of a recommendation. And so the average person coming to this review, I'm sure really doesn't have the time nor the patience to learn how to undervolt, and whether they want to take that performance hit is up to them. So I do like to keep things simple, even when it comes to overclocking because that is what the majority of people, I believe, are doing. Though I will make a separate video looking at undervolted RX 570 and comparing it against the 1650 and also the 1660 and a previous gen Nvidia card to see where the power consumption averages out at the same frame rates. That is something you have requested. Now, one thing about the 1650, however, is that it is pretty much reaching its PCIe power limit draw, in my opinion. The card here on the Galax side of things didn't really go above its wattage, and so I believe its overclocks were limited. There are PCIe 6-pin models that will push above this and will get better FPS, though again, at the detriment of having a 6-pin power connector included on the card. However, my biggest critiquing points of this card are going to be different to that of other reviewers, or they might be the same. I don't know. I haven't watched their reviews, so I don't want to get any outside influence. But with that aside, the gaming benchmark showed that the power consumption was a lot better, though the RX 570 did come out ahead in every single title, whether it be an Nvidia title or an AMD title. It simply was a better performing card. The 1660 also proved for its extra $70 that it is a much better price performance option, considering it has much more CUDA cores and it also has higher clock speeds, which at least in these 1650s I tested here may have been clock speed bound due to that 75 watt TDP limit. Then now let's quickly move on to the recommendations from an objective standpoint. Who would this card be for and why? The only current market I can think of is someone who wants to keep power consumption down, but still wants decent FPS, and they don't mind paying $150. If you are in a country with high power consumption costs, and you are going to be using this card significantly for the use of its life. Take for instance, if you're gaming on World of Warcraft and you're using this card for a very extended period of time, day in, day out, then over time, those savings for the power can make it a better value for money option than an RX 570. Though again, how many people play World of Warcraft for 16 hours a day? I'm not too sure. This could also be a good option for someone with a PC that's maybe 4 or 5 years old, but they know has a decent 4-core CPU and it can handle a GPU upgrade, and they may be concerned about the other components in their system. Say for instance, they only have a 350 watt power supply and they don't want to chop and change things too much. Then it could be a decent option. Though with those two markets aside, let's get on to the critiquing points. And the first thing that does bother me about the 1650 is the progression of the card itself. 2.5 years in the making, not really giving a whole boost over the 1050 Ti, having the same VRAM, and yet using more power than its little predecessor. Also, upon testing out the streaming performance, I was quite surprised that this does indeed have the Volta Nvidia encoder built on board. So that's the previous generation. So even though it has Turing CUDA cores, it is not benefiting from the Turing encoder that has been built into the GTX 1660 and above, and even onto the RTX cards when it was first released. This does give a better, more efficient encoding process, especially if you're going to be streaming on Twitch at 6,000 kilobits per second. The second last point I'm going to critique is that there's no low profile option. That's when the card actually has a shallower depth, therefore allowing it to fit into much smaller cases with ease, and in turn turning some sleeper PCs into otherwise gaming beasts. The last point, however, is the biggest and most missed opportunity of the 1650 in my opinion, and I don't know if others have talked about this, but I feel like with the experience of me doing what I do in the used market, coupled with the fact that Nvidia stands in the market to only gain from doing this, is something that perplexes me, and that is the UEFI biases on board these cards. I would like to see Nvidia give the partners the option to integrate a legacy BIOS that somehow gets these GPUs working on old HP motherboards, Dells, Aces, things that don't have the option to turn on CSM or disable Secure Boot. If they did that, this would make a whole new market for those old OEMs, as well as put this thing in a very good position in terms of its popularity. And if you end up getting one of these in an old OEM system, you may come into problems. Your mileage may vary with that. So in conclusion with the GTX 1650, first off, I'm going to give props to Galax. They always seem to make a solid looking card that not only looks solid, but feels solid as well. It's got the performance to match, got the thermals, and of course it comes in at the MSRP. They always seem to do a good job of hitting that. Though in terms of the actual SKU itself, the 1650, here it's one of those things where Nvidia has proven to the market that it can't control the market, and currently the market conditions are that of a buyer's market. So if you want to be selling your cards, then you have to maybe follow suit in what AMD's doing. And make no mistake, AMD don't want to sell an RX 570 at $130 US brand new. They'd want to sell it at a higher price, but they simply can't. Though as for the GTX 1650 at $150, I'm not that impressed with it. And in fact, I think it's only for someone who's looking for power efficiency or that other market that we mentioned before. Someone that's looking to replace their old potato GPU and doesn't want to change other components in their current setup, but wants an FPS boost. Other than that, there are some critiquing points which I mentioned before that I'd like to see Nvidia improve on, and this card would have went from mediocre to somewhere of the likes of, wow, it's pretty cool for a lot of things. But I feel like it missed that mark. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's review, an alternative look at the GTX 1650. With that said, if you did, be sure to hit that like button, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. But before you jump on out of here, do drop a comment and let us know what you think of this review, my thoughts and opinions, and what you think of the GTX 1650. Love reading each and every one of your feedback. Each and every one of yours? I don't know, it's getting pretty late. My brain is dropping out right now, and I'll catch you guys in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now, bye.